Good afternoon, this is Nikki Yvonne UMALI, and I will be discussing medieval art and Gothic period. So Gothic art emerged during the medieval period, which lasted for more than 200 years. It began with the architectural achievements of the 12th century as Europe was trying to move beyond the Dark Ages into an era of confidence, radiance, and prosperity. It was supplemented by the solidification of Christianity when new cathedrals and churches were being built in northern France. So what is Gothic art? So unlike forms of art that preceded it, Gothic art was characterized by an increase in naturalistic features. So naturalism, which was commonly used by Italian artists during the 13th century, later on became the dominant painting style on the continent. Origins of Gothic art. Gothic art was a style of medieval art, and as we have said earlier, it was emerged in northern France, and it preceded Romanesque art in the early 12th century. However, it later spread to the other parts of Western Europe rapidly. In the early 14th century, Gothic art developed and continued to evolve until the late 15th century. In most areas, particularly Germany, Gothic art continued into the 16th century and later subsumed into Renaissance art. The easily noticeable changes in architecture from Romanesque art to Gothic art and vice versa are usually used to describe the periods in art and all media. So what is the definition of Gothic art? So Gothic art is a medieval art movement that emerged when Europe was going through fundamental transition from the period commonly referred to as Dark Ages or Dark Ages to the Middle Ages, and people were innovating new culture and lifestyles with each passing day. Gothic art developed from around 1120 Anno Domini to around 1515 Anno Domini. Due to its creative and unique style over several years, Gothic art is categorized in 4 distinct ages, namely Early Gothic, High Gothic, Late Gothic, and the decline of Gothic art. Since the beginning of this form of art, it has greatly impacted the forms and styles of art that followed it. During early Gothic period, Christianity was on its evolving stage, and art was therefore created to explain and enhance religion. But due to high levels of illiteracy, paintings and sculptures were used as tools for teaching and promoting Christianity. Changes in art were evident in most early Gothic art through the outstanding Gothic cathedrals built all over Europe. And on 1140 became the outset of early Gothic art on the walls of the Basilica of Saint Denis, Paris. Then it was followed by the Chartres Cathedral of Paris in year 1145. During the late 14th century, the blending of Italian and Northern European art led to the strengthening of the international Gothic style. Throughout this period, most artists from France and Italy traveled across Europe dispersing artistic ideas in Italy, France, Germany, England, Bohemia, and Austria. This style of art had courtly and noble zest, filled with Flemish anxiety for naturalistic ideas. Unlike components that made up the early Gothic art, this developed style had a distinctive, unified look. And another strong important factor during the late Gothic period is that the greatly influenced art was the Black Death. This horrifying illness emerged in Europe during the time of the International Gothic style and killed about 1.3 million of the population in Europe. So there are famous Gothic arts. The medieval era of the late Middle Ages saw the development of Gothic art and major improvements in art skill during medieval times. During this era, most artists broke away from inspiration of Romanesque art and Byzantine art styles. By the 14th century, Gothic art had advanced towards a more natural and secular style referred to as International Gothic. Gothic artists were the founders of the movement that aimed towards a greater realism, which ended in the Renaissance art. Gothic art was mainly practiced in four primary types, which includes stained glass, manuscript illumination, frescoes, and panel paintings. So these are the lists, or some of the list of famous Gothic artists. Gothic art paintings. Medieval Gothic art paintings were rare until the 12th century, or about 50 years after the Gothic sculptures and architectures emerged. The transition to Gothic from Romanesque is some means indefinite. Gothic painting is often presented before a lot of changes are noticed in the compositions and figures themselves. Figures then become more animated in facial expressions and pose and tend to be reasonably small in relation to the background of the scenes in the painting. So let's talk about the decline of Gothic art. After the emergence and dominance of Gothic art from the 12th century through the 14th century, the Gothic period finally come to an end. At the end of the Gothic period, some artists, particularly in the north, maintained the Gothic style, clinging to its traditions and values, even while Italy was embracing a new cultural and artistic age, which was the Renaissance. Consequently, the end of Gothic period has substantial overlap in time with both the Northern and the Italian Renaissance eras of art. So, what are the qualities of Gothic art? So, I'll just discuss two of them. So, first is the flying buttresses. The flying buttresses is a type of architectural device used to support a connecting structure. They are a common feature in Gothic architecture and are often used to strengthen the outer walls and roofs and ceilings of larger buildings such as the churches and cathedrals at that time. The second quality that I will talk about is the pointed arches. So rather than using round Romanesque arches, Gothic architecture features pointed arches similar to those found in Islamic structure. The goal of using pointed arches was to create more space by building it vertically. So here are the references of my report. So if you would like to know more about it, you can just click the link and read what's in the reference.